Ani bojo nibi ben baneshi kwa minwa kwashkeke kwa Anishinaabe kwa minwa jajak nodem mukamakong menatona missing nonjaba bawating dara Anishinaabe kwandao. My English name is Michaela Wapkamagat. My Anishinaabe nosewinds translate to dancing bird woman and bear medicine woman. I'm from the Bear and the Crane clans. I grew up here in Sault Ste. Marie, but I come from Wekwamakong, which is on Manitoulin Island, and I am Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. And my mom, who just so happens to be your professor, has asked me to share a little bit of my knowledge that I carry. The first video was for storytelling, and this next video is going to be a little bit on the roles of women through my generational perspective, and growing up in the family that I grew up in, with the teachings that I've been given. How do I see my role as a woman, and how did I get here? So when I was young, I was about I want to say probably about 8 or 9 when my older cousin went through her puberty rites ceremony, known as a berry fast. We have lots of different ceremonies as Anishinaabe people that kind of celebrate our different transition periods in life. When we're young, we would have a naming ceremony, a walking out ceremony. We would have first hunts, vision quests for boys, and then women and girls, we have our puberty rites ceremonies known as berry fasts. And all of these ceremonies have a hand in teaching you where you are in your community, celebrating who you are, celebrating from the time you're born, you're celebrated. And so now that I'm older, I really see the significance that those celebrations had in molding Indigenous youth to become healthy adults. Through my puberty rites ceremony, the one that I witnessed first, actually, my cousin's, because I was quite young when I witnessed it, and I got to participate quite a bit because I was so close to her. And then subsequently I ended up being very involved in my sister's that happened 2 years later. And so for my cousin's, hers was a little bit different than mine was, but I do remember bits and parts of it, more specifically when she was breaking her fast, and when she started it, the first initial ceremony to start her fast. And I remember it being all of the women that I knew in my family, all the women that were close to us, our aunties, our cousins, grandmas, anybody who was very close, but it was only the women. And they came and they celebrated this young girl, my cousin. And so I remember that a little bit. I remember when she was on her berry fast. I remember our grandma teaching us what it was about a little bit. Again, I was very young the first time I witnessed it. And then I remember when my cousin broke her fast, and how at the end it was our whole family, the men and the women, and it was this big celebration. And so then when my sister did hers 2 years later, I remembered more detail, and I actually got to see the physical change that happened in my sister when she broke her fast. And that was like almost surreal, mind-blowing in itself. And it was kind of a moment of clarity for me, that it was like, wow, our ways of life are very, very real. And any kind of doubt or anything like that, that was like a moment for me. But when so the berry fast happens, the beginning of the fast, the initial ceremony is when all the women get together and they celebrate this young girl who has initially started her period. It is a puberty rites ceremony celebrating that transitional time from when you are a girl until you become a young woman, until you are officially a life giver, a life bearer, and how important and sacred that role is, and how sacred that role of a mother, a life giver, a nurturer is. And so when the beginning of this fast, the women of that girl who's going into this fast, they all come together and they talk about things that they want to teach this young girl in this year-long ceremony, what they are going to teach her about being a woman, what it means to be a woman. And in today's day and age, I think that ceremony and everything that it encompasses is it's so affirming in our ways of how we believe that spirit is of a woman, right? What it truly is. And so talking about things that we endure as women, sacrifice, the amount of sacrifice that we have to do for our communities, for our people, for our families, for everyone. Women sacrifice a lot. Learning about self-care and how important it is to take care of yourself as a woman, how important it is to take care of your own lodge. That's what we refer to our bodies as. How important it is to make sure you're eating well and taking care of yourself, drinking enough water, your important role as a water carrier, as a woman. And so that first initial ceremony is kind of where those women say out loud what they would like to teach that young girl. And so in this one, after the first initial ceremony happens, you begin your year-long fast. And traditionally, it's a fast from berries. And the reason why berries are such a sustenance for us, they provide so much nutrients. They are made from water. They carry so much significance to Indigenous people, to Anishinaabe people, to the woodlands area. And so that sacrifice of giving up that nutrients, that berry, and what it signifies, what it represents. And so that year-long berry fast is all berries. So traditionally, that might have just been berries that we would have ate back in the day. Well, now, in today's day and age, that means berry-flavored juice, berry-flavored lip gloss, berry candy, anything berry, makeup if you had berry-colored makeup or something. And then you were also asked to give up other things. I've heard teachings out there about giving up dancing. My grandma gave us special permission to continue dancing because we were a dancing family, but she made us, our traditional outfits were very very plain. They were very quiet. They didn't have any loud colors. I didn't wear any beadwork. And then there's other teachings out there that you don't touch men's stuff at all, or you don't pick up babies. So there's a lot of different teachings and reasons for those teachings. It kind of just depended on, for us and our family, what worked for us. And so through that year, I gave up like junk food, and like I'm trying to think of things that I know I gave up, like pop and chips at one point. And so it's even though traditionally back in the day there was reasons for what we would have given up, nowadays as time progresses, right, we need to make room for other things. So, and then that kind of moves into the next part of the ceremony itself. At the end of your year-long fast from berries, that's when you would enter a full fast for 2 days. And so traditionally, the girl would be sent into the bush and she would fast by herself. She would make her own shelter. She would maybe have, some medicines and her drum, and traditionally all the things that we would have that would help us with prayer when we are in that 2-day fast, that 2-day ceremony. But at the time when we were doing our berry fast, that's when West Nile was, very rampant in the news and everything. And so my grandma wanted us to be safe. And so we were given a little tent. We had our blankets, and we were, I had my drum, I had my journal, I had my smudge, all my medicines so I could smudge. I had books, and before we would go on that fast, we were told to make our tobacco ties. And our tobacco ties were all connected by one piece of string, and I think there's probably about 500 of them that were connected to each other, and they created a circle. And when we were making those tobacco ties, we were told that you talk to that medicine and you ask that medicine to keep you safe, to let every other spirit that comes to that medicine line know that there's ceremony going on inside this medicine line, and to not interrupt it. And so, when you think about it, when we go out to the bush by ourselves, there's animals out there. There's bears, there's wolves, there's animals, all kinds of animals. And then believing in what I believe in, I also believe that there's also spirits out there. And so, you try really, really hard to believe in everything that you're taught. And so I remember when I was making those tobacco ties for my fast, I was like really, really praying and really, really talking to that medicine, really trying in my heart to believe that this medicine boundary line was going to keep me safe. Well, when I was on my fast, oh my goodness. And you're hungry, right? Because you're fasting completely. I was so hungry. Oh my goodness. And my grandma taught me, she said, when you start getting those hunger pains and you're really struggling to focus, that's when you pray. Because that's when, you're suffering the most. That's when your prayers are the strongest. And so, and this happened, I don't even know if I mentioned this, but I was 11 when this was going on. So I was about 12, I was 12 when I was finishing my fast. And so I was out in the bush by myself. And I had my little setup. I had my tobacco ties around. And I remember hearing a grunt. And I know what bears sound like. And that's also my clan. And so I had to believe the most belief I could muster. I had to believe in everything I had been taught up until that point. That medicine that I was talking to when I was using it, and I'd asked it to do its job, that was going to keep me safe. And I heard this bear, and I didn't see it. Thankfully, I was too scared to look, but I heard it. I could hear it grunting, and I could hear it like twigs snapping. And oh my God, I remember I felt like I felt like my heartbeat was like so loud. And then I was actually out there with, she's kind of like a ceremonial cousin. She was breaking her fast the same time as me. We couldn't see each other. We were far apart, but she had a tent that was complete mesh. There was no sides to it. So she seen the bear. She actually seen it. But that medicine kept me safe, and it did its job just like I believed it would. And so at the end of that fast, that's when my grandma came to come and get us at the end of that 2 days. And we went back to my other grandma, my grandma Marjorie Buck, her house to go and break my fast. And that's when all of my family was there. All of the women, all of the men. And I was presented to my community, my family, as a woman. And, you know, it's almost hard to disrespect yourself or to not hold yourself in such high regard when you are raised in those teachings, when you are celebrated from the time you are born. Your role in the community is celebrated all the way through your life. Every change you go through, you are celebrated. And so I truly hold those teachings, the traditional role of women and men, and our spirits. I hold them in very high regard. I'm so thankful that I've got to experience the ceremonies that I've gone through. And yeah, that's my story. Bewitched.